was invited to a seminar back in about 82, and a friend said, you got to get down there, you got to see this done. And so I went down there, and there was a master showing these type of techniques. But the thing was, I was certain that he could do it, but he wasn't showing any of us anything. But he showed me enough that said, this stuff really works, and I began to get into the textbooks. And from that, I happened to see Master Dillman's tapes advertised, and I called him up, and I thought, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about, because I've heard so much about pressure points. You know, even as a little kid, everybody knows if you stick your finger behind your ear there, it hurts, or poke them under the jaw, or stick them on the arm, it hurts. But there's a lot more to the pressure points than that, than just the very basic, simple stuff. And so one of the things I wanted to do was on the video, I wanted to address all the foolishness that's been going on in the magazines and some of the stupid remarks that I've heard from instructors. They asked, is this thing really work? How come if it really works that Dillman's the only one that knows it, and all that kind of nonsense? Well, I'd like to address it out of the medical textbooks. I can prove to you beyond a shadow of a doubt what Master Dillman is doing does work. I can show it to you in the textbooks. The argument is over about that. There is no excuse for ignorance anymore when it comes to that. Now that I've said all the negative things, I can jump over into the positive. What I want to do is I want to show you a little bit about the nerves and how they work. I want to take neuroanatomy and neurophysiology that could put you to sleep and took me years to learn and boil it down into a simple sense. What I'm going to need is I'm going to need about 5 people in black uniforms, you, in black uniforms, come right up here. I need about 5 people in all white uniforms, you. I hope that's fine. Okay? Now, I want everybody to face that way in 2 lines. Okay? One right after the other. Okay? Now, guys in white, go down on your knees. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about how the nerves work here. The fellows here in white, we're going to call them the nerves that are involved in the spinal cord. And we're going to talk about how nerves conduct. Okay? I want you first 5 people to take off your belts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about nerve conduction. The way that nerves work is electrochemical. Okay? What happens is one nerve passes an electrochemical message to another nerve, and onto another nerve, and onto another nerve, and down the line it goes. It's a message that shoots down the line. Okay? Now, what happens is that it's called a facilitated nerve. It's kind of like the pump is primed. You know, in these techniques where it takes 1 shot, and then 2 shots, and then the 3rd one gets them? Well, in my opinion, it has to do with nerve facilitation. When this message is passed along here, this nerve has been facilitated. It's ready to fire. Now, all we have to do is just give a little bit more, and it'll fire. But it doesn't have enough of a nerve impulse to fire. So basically, in these type of techniques where you have to hit more, you have to hit more than once, or you have to hit on 3 places, a lot of times these strikes are on one nerve on 3 different points, not all of it. But sometimes it's all, say for instance, on the radial nerve at different points along there. But one other thing that I don't want to get too intense and too confusing is the fact that even though this nerve impulse is going this way, at the same time it's going this way, these guys are passing off things to the groups of nerves over here on the side. So it's going down that way, it's going this way, it's going this way. Messages are being sent from the skin up into the brain, also into the spinal cord and back out, classic nerve reflexes. You know, the things like the Golgi tendon apparatus and the muscle spindles. Well, they're happening locally, but there's also being a message sent up. And one of the most important things that ties in is the autonomic nervous system. That's the fellows in black here, okay? What happens is along the spine, there's the spinal cord, but there's fibers, nerve fibers sent off to a group of autonomic nerves, a chain of nerves that go along the spine. From the 2nd thoracic down to about the 2nd to 4th lumbar area, that's the sympathetic portion of your autonomic nervous system. Let me just give you a real simple lesson in neuroanatomy. There's the spinal nerves that control the muscles and bones. There's the autonomic nerves that control the different organs. Now, the autonomic system is divided into two parts, sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic system, I said, is from the second to the fourth. It runs along there. The parasympathetic comes up in the top and down the bottom. Cranial nerves 3, 7, 9, and 10, and down the sacral plexus 2 to 4. Now, the reason these things are so important, I was talking with a neurologist at dinner the other night, and I started asking him about these things. I just tried to pick his brain on why is it that these things are happening this way. How can you hit a guy on the arm and knock him out? Now, he could understand how I could hit a guy on the neck and knock him out, but when I started to say, why is it that they hit him on the arm and knock him out? He says, undoubtedly it has to be the autonomic nervous system tied in there. That's the guys in black, okay? So messages are being passed over here. As these messages are going down along the side, all of these are connected over, okay? Now, I want to illustrate another concept here. Do y'all understand about the autonomic nervous system? Is that real straightforward? It took years. I could draw you diagrams for you, sleep, and that type of thing. But you get the picture on that. Okay. Now, I want to talk about divergence and convergence of signals. Okay. Let's do this. Let's you two and you two go ahead and have a seat again. Okay, just go ahead and have a seat. Now, you can hang on to those belts for a second. What's going on in divergence and convergence of signals? Divergent, stay right where you are, you're fine. Divergence of signals is when the nerve impulse is coming from the back of the room, it's coming up to him, and then he is making a connection with these fellas, okay? What's happening is one signal now becomes multiplied out to here. Now, each of these guys has a line down here and out and making connections in other places. So what I'm saying is we've just amplified our signal, okay? Now, that's called divergence. Now, convergence is just the opposite. Let's say each of these guys had line extending down this way, and they all connected with this nerve here. What they've done is they've taken that signal and they brought it down and narrowed it down into one. And what's happening is the body has very, very complex nerve impulses that, in my opinion, are not fully understood. Like the neurologist said, we know a lot what's going on, but we just haven't even scratched the surface. Because when I talked with him about, the way these signals go, he said that it wasn't clearly understood. Things like when they do an EMG, you know what an EMG is? They want to test the nerves. They insert the needle in. And he told me about how they would bounce the signal off. And I asked him, I said, well, in school I was tending to think of the nerves shoot a message one way, and another message comes back in on a nerve the other way. He says, no, it can travel two ways on that. And when Master Dillman said that the first time, I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to have to pull out my textbook and look that one up. But the neurologist confirmed that. What we talk about, the two messages crashing in the middle, well, that impulse can go either way on the nerve when it's artificially stimulated. Like when you hit it, it artificially stimulates the nerve and it can go in either directions. So that's why, let's say we were talking about divergence of signals, and that nerve message was coming up here to him, and when he got it, he spread it out here. You've just amplified that signal greatly. That's why some of these techniques are so powerful, because of these connections, the divergence and convergence of signals. Now, there's a whole lot of other nerve reflexes and that type of thing that we could go into, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, because that gets pretty dry. But you all can sit down. But basically what's going on in the current research as it pertains to acupuncture, and important as it pertains to you all, is they consider that the nerves are involved in the meridian system. Now, Dr. Becker is the one that's done a lot of work on that, and he feels that the covering of the nerve, the glial cells that cover the nerve, is actually where that nerve impulse is transmitted in meridians. Now, that may not mean a whole lot to you, but what they're saying is that the ancient Chinese mapped out the glial nerve system, and they know exactly where it goes and what type of effects that have. So what I'm trying to say to you, if I'm losing you a little bit, the important thing to remember is the meridians and the nerves are intimately tied in together, in my opinion, based on the current research. Not everybody believes that, but in my opinion, based on what I've seen in the textbooks, it is. So when you want to study the meridians and the points along the meridians, you should look at the nerves too. My advice to you is to get some of the basic books, like you talked about the anatomy coloring book and that type of thing. Get some of the basic books and find out where those nerves are, because they're all connected in there together.
On the inside of the thigh is where we're doing that. And I'll just tell you right now, you got to touch the outside. The outside. The nerve that comes down in through here comes right out here. So you got to tap him out on this side and strike him on the inside. Okay? You set up the nerve in the leg. I've had some people pass out with kicks to the nerve in the leg. Just stand up. I'm not going to knock you out with it. But when you set up down low, just like the arm, set up, you set up inside the leg, you're setting up the liver meridian, and you set it up. Then when you kick in there, you're going to put him down. And if you set up that leg good and he kicks at you, or I kick him now, standing here, now he throws a kick at me, then he's easy to knock out because that nerve is set up. It's carrying that message he told you about. And then the harder you hit that nerve, it carries that message for up to 20 minutes.
Okay, when you work on the nerve meridian, like say the lung meridian, which is a metal point, that doesn't mean all of the pressure points on the lung meridian, is a metal point. Could some of them be like a fire point?
Well, they're all metal points on the lung meridian, but you have some points on every meridian that affect other elements. For instance, the two pressure points on the wrist are warning points. You know, when I tell you people that these are most important points you got, these 2 points right here are warning points. These are warning points right at the wrist. They're warning points for his entire front line. They're warning points for his entire back line. And if you were in Professor Jay's class, he probably had you doing this and told you that when you aim it at the center of somebody's body, it hurts him more. But that's why it hurts him more. It hurts him more because these are warning points for the solar plex. If I step in and hit this guy in the solar plex, feels that it hurts him. But if I can torque this wrist and hit him in the solar plex, it's going to hurt him more. So in that case, yes, they're metal, but yes, they're not, because they fire there. Warning point for right here at the wrist is right inside this forefinger. If you were doing, did you know that or not? Warning point in there, did you know? This is here. If I want to hurt him more, I sneak this thumb right into here. Now it hurts him more, doesn't it? Yes. Because this is a warning point for this point right here. So
what do you mean by warning?
well, it's an alarm point. It throws the whole system into shock or fires it. The same as a nerve being hit, it's fired and carries that message. You've been here when I've zipped people in the ribs, and I hit them upside the head and they pass out. That's a warning point for the gallbladder meridian over on the ribs, over really right off the liver meridian. And when you hit that point, that entire gallbladder line is like activated. Why, I don't know, but it does it. I actually don't know. Do you have any answers of why that would do that?
Which one again?
Why a warning point fires up the whole meridian? I don't know. Somehow it's coming off that spine. The nerves off the spine affect that. But once you activate his ribs which there's a gallbladder point there, but that's a warning point, alarm point. That's part of the thing that I keep secret, a lot of the alarm points.
I know.
Oh. You know, the vendor goes around and he sells the apple, but he doesn't sell you his cart. I'm giving you some apples. We got to keep a cart for a little while. But there are warning points all over the body. And as you learn those, they just fire up. They fire up. So when you do learn some, you write them down and keep track of them. Because they fire up the whole system. You can almost fire him in the ribs and hit him anywhere in the gallbladder meridian. And it won't knock him out, but it's going to hurt him more than just hitting him. If I walk up and hit you in the gallbladder meridian, it hurts you. You've all been around when we tread on the foot, and that hurts. Right at the gallbladder point. Touch his gallbladder warning point, alarm point, and tread on his foot. See if he doesn't fall down. Fires up that whole meridian. So once you get an alarm point, hang on to it, because they're valuable. So alarm points are valuable. Back of the arm's alarm point. You've been here when I've said that. Back of the arm, here, stand up. This is a triple warmer. This is a triple warmer back here. Triple heater, triple warmer. I actually have it as triple warner, W-A-R-N-E-R. Not warmer, warner. Because it's a warning activation point for this guy's heart, head, and kidney. By simply tapping here, he is vulnerable on the kidney for a shot. By simply tapping here, he's vulnerable on the head for a shot. By simply tapping here, he's vulnerable on the heart for a shot. It activates all those shots. That's why so many techniques are in Kata. We emphasize this hit point on the back of the arm. And I tell you, you can't do the other half. Well, you've all been there when I've taken somebody and hit them and knocked them out, or chopped them in the neck and knocked them out, or dropped them somewhere else and knocked them out. Well, fine. But you've also been there when I hit them on this pretty hard and they get dizzy, or they go down, or they almost hit the floor. What would happen if you coupled this with the shot to the head, all at one shot? Because this is an alarm point for that head. And you're going to close with it all in one shot. So you have these alarm points, and they set up the other meridians. That's part of the unexplained. I have ideas, but some of them are far-fetched ideas. You know, you're just trying to think.
I was just wondering, Kyuka 1 Kata, we go like that. I was trying to think of some other breakdowns for it, and I was thinking, you know, triple heater, like if he was choking me.
Right.
Triple heater, and then a hard point on the body, but I wasn't sure where to go with that.
Spleen right here to
Spleen.
put him out.
And then,
Spleen to put him out. I'll tell you what's scary. I've been going out, and people are coming up with knockouts. He reminded me of that, because people are showing me knockouts they developed on their own. I have a thing with some of the black belts. I said, look, you want your next promotion? They said, yeah. I said, you come up with 3 knockouts I haven't seen. You got to teach me now. Everybody just wants me to teach them and duplicate, teach and duplicate. You come up with 3 I haven't seen. You get your promotion. I got people doing it now. I got people coming up with knockout after knockout. They're working and they're thinking and they're moving, and now they're researching. That's what I wanted to create with this. People that are researching do it, that if something happened to me, this gets passed on. Don't want you to duplicate. Ed Lake, you all know Ed Lake. Oh, down in Florida, and I never thought I'd be studying tapes of Ed Lake knocking people out. He knocks some people out at a seminar big time. Ain't it? He's happy, look at him. He's got his knockouts for his promotion, so he don't care. He's got his. But I have a list of people. In fact, I have so many now, we're going back and putting it on the computer. Because I have people now with knockouts that I haven't seen. I've got Indiana developed a knockout I haven't seen. Your instructor, Jim Clapp, come up, he showed me a knockout. I hadn't seen it before. He developed it on his own. I don't know if he showed it to you guys, maybe he won't. He wants one up. But he developed one. Ed Lake developed a couple now. Jack Hogan developed one down in Florida. Jesus, it's deadly. I mean, it's really deadly, and I didn't think of it. And it's just, it's the old groin grab move. It's the old groin grab move, and he worked it out to kill people. Or it would, if he really did it. I couldn't believe it. So they take the technique and they start analyzing. That's what I want to create. Now I think I got it. I have people all over that show me knockouts. I have so many now, we got to put it on the computer because I'm forgetting what to show me. I have mine, I have what I'm working on, but if you develop one I do, I'd say, yeah, that's correct, but I don't have to know it. I got mine and I'm getting them to all parts of the body. And you should be getting yours and getting them to all parts of the body. If you come to enough seminars, you have the videotapes, you should start analyzing and do some research and do your katas. Ed did some people, knocked them out at the seminar. We're back there that night with the video, and I'm saying, rewind that. Rewind that. I'm studying Ed Lake, knocking people out. And for once, he wasn't one of the people. Okay, anybody else have a question? Yes, Jeff.
Can you explain how we can use the mother system in the acupuncture to help?
Yeah, the liver is the mother to the heart. So the liver meridian, when you touch the liver meridian, it's like being on the heart. If I kick you in the leg, your heart's fired up. The liver supplies the energy of the heart. It's the mother to the heart. And when you hurt the liver, which is the whole inside of the leg, you kick him in the leg, and you still come through to a heart point, there's a chance of injuring or killing the person.
So by hurting the mother, we're also hurting the other one.
Yes, yes, hurting the son. That's not as important. That's important, but that's not as important as some of the other techniques that we do. But that is important that way, especially kicking and punching. A lot of the kata moves that involve a kick and or a punch set it up. Where if you reverse that technique, it doesn't work. It doesn't work by punching them and then kicking them, unless you're going to kick them to a different part. By punching you down, then we kick you, and it's a different factor. But I'm talking the same 2 points. Anybody else have questions?
About the convergent, divergent nerves. Could you show an example of a convergent nerve and a divergent reaction of
Better
behavior?
ask him that.
It happens in all the nerve
So
systems.
every nerve is convergent and divergent.
It can be, but fibers off that nerve
Mhm.
can converge and diverge. You can have a main bundle. Nerves, you can't think of nerves by themselves as like one solid cable. A nerve is a bundle of cables, and they're broken up into groups called fascicles, and they're surrounded by things. One thing I didn't get into that I thought was really important, I remember, was saltatory conduction. And the way that works is, in saltatory conduction, there are nerve cells that are surrounded by a myelin sheath. And what happens is, instead of, like, we line the people up and it goes from one to the other, to the other, and to the other, well, what happens with saltatory conduction is, let's say all 5 of them were wrapped in myelin, and then the next one down there isn't. The nerve impulse would be tossed down to the one that wasn't wrapped, and it would tend to bypass these. That's the fastest type of nerve signal in the body, saltatory conduction, because it's going, 5 or 6 at a time as opposed to 1 at a time. So what's happening in here, every nerve, think of it as multiple cables surrounded by a larger myelin sheath. And is it this portion, is it this portion, or is it this portion of it? And all of those are making connections all over the body. It's absolutely amazing. When I did dissection, we spent 4 months doing human dissection, and I saw things that would make a buzzard puke. I mean, it was absolutely the most amazing thing I ever saw. I had to scalp someone. I saw him cut the guy's head off with a hacksaw. I mean, I saw all sorts of stuff. But when it came to
Great for the video.
yeah, my wife says, don't talk about that.
Family video.
But when you get in there and you actually see it, you may never eat chicken again, but when you actually see what it is in there, you're looking on the inside and you're trying to see where the nerve is and where the muscle fibers are. And when you try and dissect a nerve out of the body, I mean, it is hard, because we tried to see how long the length of the nerve that we could dissect out without cutting the nerve. And I mean, it was really hard, because there are so many connections there. And that's what I was saying about the importance of the autonomic nervous system. I keep coming back to that. But every time he says back, I start thinking all of the things that are along the back here. Again, from this area here to down about that area there is the sympathetic portion of the autonomic nervous system. Can I use the word vagus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The vagus nerve, if you want to start anywhere, start with the vagus nerve because it's part of that parasympathetic system. Vagus means wandering. And when you look in an anatomy textbook, that thing is everywhere. And it starts up in there. It's one of the 3 cranial nerves. The third
Part of the apple cart he's giving you. Feel the wheels go.
If I spill my guts,
No,
just stop.
that's all right. That's all right.
Okay. Okay. The third, the 7th, and the 7th is here on the side of the
There goes the
face.
handle.
Out into here. I mean, that 7th, when you look in a textbook, that 7th nerve is all over there. And the 9th, which is glossopharyngeal, and I don't know, the
Third. Yeah.
Okay. The glossopharyngeal goes to the carotid sinus. The carotid sinus is right over the carotid artery. When you turn that, they go. And basically, that and the vagus. The vagus in there, those cranial nerves are part of the parasympathetic system. And then down lower from 2 to 4 sacral nerve roots.
And the herring nerve.
Yeah, the herring nerve is actually a branch off the glossopharyngeal, as I remember, the 9th cranial nerve. But those connections in there are absolutely amazing because I think, in my personal opinion, just looking at it, I would think the back would be much more deadly than the front.
But it is.
Hands down.
But that's one of the problems. It's deadly. You got to watch when you do knockouts on somebody's back or spine or anywhere in the back because you know what happens when a person gets shot in the spine, he gets paralyzed. Got shot low, paralyzed from here down, shot high, paralyzed from here up. So you have to watch when you do anything near the spine, even kicking or punching. You knew that before I came around with self-defense. That's automatic.
Well, also in the neck area, there are 3 areas up in.
Keep everybody awake here.
After seeing some of your knockouts. Okay, there are 3 networks called ganglia. The cervical sympathetic ganglia. There's the inferior, there's the middle, and there's the superior cervical ganglia. And my specialty is car accident cases. I love car accident cases to treat them. If there's anything that I can do well, it's treat car accident cases. Matter of fact, I love to hear the sound of screeching tires. No, but don't put that on the video.
Dr. Jekyll here.
But seriously speaking, in the whiplash condition, they can have what's called Barré-Lou syndrome. And when they whiplash that neck enough, it'll stimulate one or several of the sympathetic ganglia. When it does that, the other term for it is called sympathetic storm. It feels like the person's got a storm going on inside of their head. What he says about lighting up the head, well, I mean, it's lit up like a Christmas tree with that. And when you stimulate that, remember, the sympathetic nervous system, you ever heard the fight or flight response? Has everybody heard that? You know, you're going to fight or you're going to run? Well, the sympathetic system is the one that mediates that. In other words, it's the one involved in that. So you stimulate that, the eyes are going to dilate, you know, the hearing, they're going to hear ringing in the head, all sorts of things. It's going to light up the whole head just by getting one of those 3 ganglion. But the whiplash in here, when I see some of these knockouts where they start to go down, in some situations, even when they go lightly, the whiplash is probably one of the worst things you're going to give the person because it's the gift that keeps on giving because they're going to be hurting for weeks to months after that. The whiplash, again, that's my specialty, and that takes a long time to get straightened out, and it can have permanent consequences from it whether the person feels pain at that time or not. But up in there, if you want to do damage to somebody and you said to yourself, well, where would I want to go to do the most nerve damage? I guarantee it would be somewhere in there. If you look in the textbooks, it's just a minefield waiting to go off. And also in one of if y'all does everybody have all the videos? Who doesn't have all the videos? All of them.
You're missing out.
I'm telling you, get them. Get the videos.
I need the money. I need to replace some of the card.
But the videos, this last one with Basai, that is incredible. I love Nahanshi until I saw the Basai tape. Go out and get that today. Do yourself a favor. But in there, he was talking about the nerve underneath there. That's the spinal accessory nerve. That's one of the cranial. That's 11, as I remember. But it's underneath. You know where he talked about underneath the muscle? I was sitting there watching the video, putting it on hold, pulling out my anatomy textbook, flipping over, looking in there, seeing which one it was, seeing where it went, pushing the video back on, watching a little bit more, picking up my anatomy and physiology textbooks and doing it that way. Also the brachial plexus. In here, where he talked about getting underneath there, that's brachial plexus. C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. Those are accessible in there. And I was talking with someone last night about how the fibers go back and forth, what's called decussation. And what the body does is it takes it from several different levels, and maybe this one and this one will join, if these are the 5 nerve roots, this one and this one will join together, and part of this and part of that will join together, and this one and that one will join together, and then they'll crisscross fibers back and forth. I mean, it's a nightmare to learn peripheral neurology. But the fact of the matter is, that's why out of this area here, it supplies the whole upper extremity, and it affects things so intently. That's why you may be hitting here on the radial nerve and hitting somewhere else, but you may be hitting just C5 nerve root, and that's enough to send them out. Because you're hitting, remember what we talked about with facilitation of the nerves and so forth? There's things going on inside the brain. There's a neurology test called somatosensory evoked potentials. And basically what they do is they put these electrodes on the brain to measure the brain activity. They stimulate them like out here in the arm, and then they measure what happens up in the brain. I mean, if there wasn't something going on, why would they be measuring it up in the brain? But somatosensory evoked potentials, I sent you a paper on that. It is basically proving what we're doing here. By stimulating those nerves, those connections go up all the way up into the brain, as well as affecting things locally. That was a simple answer to one question.
The thing that's weird is you can take a nerve and get it on 3 places, and when you tap it, you get response. And a lot of what we do, how many people here have I knocked out? And raise your hands. Get them up, some of you with a half a hand.
With pleasure.
Okay, so quite a bit of you. And you've seen a lot of knockouts.
Yes, sir.
All of the knockouts or all the moves don't work on all the people. But a lot of the moves that conventional karate was teaching before we started this only worked on 10 and 20% of the people. This puts it at up over 80%. You understand? Techniques that are 10%, do you want to use those, or do you want to use them that are 80, 90, or 100? We try to make the techniques become 100% by activation, because that's where the touching part comes in. You all know by now that the death touch, or whatever means the death touch, because it's where you touch that activates a nerve. So that's why the death touch. If I hadn't touched your arm, hitting the neck would have done nothing. Some of the techniques in the kata involve whiplash. Those of you that do kata seisan or hangetsu, you come here with that. This is a whiplash consideration. This causes a whiplash. This is the whiplash technique. When I was taught that kata, I was taught that this was blocking a kick. I had the second seminar a while back in Isshin where people told me this is blocking a kick, this is blocking a punch, this is grabbing his hand, and this is pulling. That's what I was told. You can't fight like that. You cannot do this to somebody. You cannot block this guy's kick and this guy's punch all at the same time. If your punch is, stand up here. You punch. I can't block this. I can block your kick. Be ridiculous. And then what is he going to do? Wait till I grab him? That doesn't make sense. The people that mapped out katas mapped them out with the angle and direction to do this. This This alone can cause dizziness. That's the far two extremes that he was talking about. You catch him with the ridge hand, pull his heel, stay up.
Eric, we're right behind.
This causes the ridge hand. No, I just want to explain the whiplash effect that he talked about. When you catch here and you pull this hand down, this stretches the nerve. When you stretch the nerve, you actually activate the baroreceptors in the artery. Do you know that? Carotid artery. I showed that to you in medical books. And as you stretch this out, you actually activate or make those baroreceptors in not only that but all the arteries. You make them become sensitive. The more I can stretch his arm, the more sensitive I make it, because I'm at too far extremes. If I stretch his arm down and catch him with the ridge hand, that causes a dizziness. And then the next move in the kata is that. That's grab his hair, his head, his ear, and whiplash the neck. So that's why the kata turned and really quickly pulled. I am to tap him here, grab the head, and just quick whiplash. If I hit that way, his head would be going back that way. Now I have to grab and whiplash the other way. And I think he'll tell you that's like an automobile accident happening right here. And when the kata was developed, you got to remember this man might have had on a top knot. So this might have been a top knot technique, to just grab that top knot and yank. Because when you push the arm down and you catch here, you'll see it causes a dizziness. And while he was going back, I was to grab the head and yank it. So we just caught it at too far extremes, and you're to grab his head and yank it. So those of you that do that kata, you're not blocking a punch because there's no muscle out here. As he's falling back that way, you just pull his head towards you and you have the whiplash effect.
Is that the third point?
Yes, could be, yes.
Because
But you ain't worried about points when you're counting the whiplash effect. You're taking this guy's neck and quick shifting.
One of the things I'm worried about is we go on looking at the pina, the different forms, and breaking them down, and looking at, 1, 2, and then 3-point hits and 4-point.
Right.
Is that after a while, you usually can tell when you're taking your person out, but there's some confusion sometimes, in terms of body systems and how close you are to major organs, whether you've taken the person out or not. And
Right.
so I still don't know yet, when to stop. Okay, you got me
before
going.
he's dead.
Yeah, well, but that's the problem. You got us going, and Mike's working with us on it. But it's a situation where, okay, you've shown us, how to stun, and some of us have been knocked out by you. But the third technique we assume is a knockout
Or to finish.
or the finish. But then there's another technique afterwards that comes right afterwards, almost like a second guarantee, which is
Yes.
the 4th point. And that gets scary.
Yeah, well then that's the one you don't do because you don't hit or kick. You probably have been there when I said, explain the double jump kicks in kata. Well, you don't double jump kick somebody when he's on his way down. You all know the explanation for double jump kicks in kata? Yes, if you don't, raise your hand.
Slowing down.
Okay, well you all been around when somebody's been knocked out, right? How many people do katas that have the double jump kick? Bang, bang, and you jump up and kick. The double jump kick. You've all been around. In fact, you're going to see me knock some people out at the end in the next session. For the big grand finale, we're going to knock a bunch of people out. The double jump kick, if this guy is standing and I go to do a double jump kick, he's going to get out of the way. Not effective. You understand? Not really effective. Double jump kick. They come up with all kinds of reasons. I used to come up with reasons, kick his groin, kick this, kick that, to double jump kick. But if I knock a person out, which as I knock somebody out, if he's in this position heading for the floor, that's when you are to double jump kick him for the finish. You only have to read that to know that it's going to kill him.
So what you're saying?
When you've seen somebody knocked out, going to the floor like this, do you want him double jump kick? No.
No,
That's what- but
if I
that's
see
when
him
you are to
da-
double
If I
jump.
see him
Sit
dazed,
down.
and I've thrown the third
Then you can
technique,
double jump kick him.
I'm not sure that the technique has was effective, the third point, or third group,
If you've seen him dazed,
and he's going down.
you're going to do the next move.
I do the next move.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you've also been around on Say Something where I've knocked people out coming up under here and there, so that's just an advanced move. Plus another breakdown for that is, you catch him with the ridge hand, you don't have to grab his hair and yank. That can be the chop up into there. So if this dizzy them, that finishes them. There's 3 explanations for that technique, and none of them are blocking here and blocking there. That's the point I'm getting at. The katas, a lot of people try to get around this without doing the katas. Any one of my higher students will tell you that I put most of my time in katas, and my study is in katas and the research and why that move takes place. You have moves in katas that are funny, they're weird. Some come up by the ear, some go down on the hip, some just go on the hip. You've been here, we broke them down. You have moves in katas. You have one move in a kata where the hand comes up behind the back. Have you ever seen that move?
Yes.
Yeah? You'll see people at tournaments and they'll go like this. And you'll see them go like this. And turn around and do that. Why is that hand going behind the back? You're mapping out the pressure points. Do you know what I was told? You were told the same thing as I told you. And you too, probably early on. We were told that that was your opponent bending your arm up behind your back. Remember that?
That's how you get out of it.
That's how you get out of it. That's right. We were told your opponents bend your arm up behind your back. Now that we're into this, though, that's funny. That's funny. You said, I mean, your opponents, these were killers that were inventing kata. They didn't think you were going to bend their arm up behind their back. Everything's supposed to be positive in kata. Isn't that a negative? I'm going to fight you, but you bend your arm up behind my back, my arm. That's like our cowboys shooting the bottles, practicing being shot in the knee before they shoot the bottle. Right? Our cowboys, when they went out and quick draw to shoot the bottles, everything's positive. They're going to shoot the bottles. You go for your gun, I go for my gun, I'm going to shoot you. I don't say, well, what happens if he shoots me in my knee, he shoots me here, I still got to get my gun, I'll do that and practice that. Well, the samurai, same thing. He didn't practice getting his arm bent up behind his back. You're actually mapping the angle and direction that those knuckles can close on your opponent's pressure points right at the kidney or the spine. And when you activate it with this move, and you come up behind that's you going behind his back. That's you going behind his back and hitting him there. That's what that is. You have a pressure point, it's actually 2 inches above the kidney, 4 inches in from the spine, that not only can shut the kidney off, but it is the warning point, or the actual control point for that whole meridian.
What type of hit is it?
Not like that. Not hard. Not hard. Don't you do that hard on Mike.
I did my mistake twice. And you will never let
When
me
it
do it
comes
again.
to the pressure points, 80% of the people are affected by 100% of the pressure points. 80% of your people are affected by 100% of the pressure points. You do have an element of people that are super sensitive or not so sensitive. Sometimes the ones not so sensitive, though, in some cases, aren't going to be attacking you because they have some problems elsewhere. We had one man that was in an automobile wreck and his arm was massive scars. You couldn't do anything to his nerves in his arm, but we're not sure anything was put back right either. I didn't tell him that, but you ought to have seen his arm, and he couldn't feel anything, but everywhere else, in fact, on the other arm, he was twice as sensitive. He was twice as sensitive. So they didn't put the arm back right. That's his problem. That's a fault. But you have 80% of the people affected by 100% of the pressure points. There are pressure points that work on 100% of people. You just got to find them and learn to read them for body anatomy. You learn to read them. You learn to read foreheads, chin line, jaw line, chest. Big chest, usually weak up and in. Big belly, usually weak in and down, just the opposite of the chest. Great big skinny legs with a great big heavy body, weak legs, gonna break. You learn to read. Times of the day are important. Times of the day. Morning, afternoon. Changes at noon. Changes at noon, right at the mid-level. All your leg knockouts work easier in the morning. They work easier in the morning. I have a seminar out in Terre Haute, Indiana. We're doing it in a couple weeks. And it's a 9 o'clock in the morning seminar. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'll get there. But we're going to do legs. We're going to start out with legs. Because legs are weakest then. If I do a leg seminar now, they'll be harder to do. It changes at noon. Morning, night. Just believe me and trust me. If we do the knee thing that you see on the Nahanchi tape, that was in the afternoon. If I did that in the morning, his knee would have just could have popped out of the socket. Same technique, same strength. Afternoon, a little more strength, break the knee. Evening, a lot more strength to break the knee. The energy shift, morning, night, that's the most important thing you have to know for fighting. Now, yes, organs do go through different cycles where they are weaker at different times of the day, and it is easier to stop his heart at a given time or his liver, but you do not have to know that to use this system. So you do not have to know that, and you don't have to know how big the moon is.
Don't you want to be close to the major organ though for the third point?
If you want to kill the person, then you could pay attention to that if you truly want to stop the heart. But put it this way, it's easier to work on your liver at 4 o'clock in the morning for an acupuncturist, yet he will not treat you at 4 o'clock in the morning. The same reason I don't like to do anything at that hour. He's sleeping. So he gets you in another time. He can treat you at another time. He has to use a few more needles or it's a little more difficult. Same thing with our technique. I can break your leg at night, it's just going to be a little more difficult than in the morning. Then I better know what I'm doing and know the strength that it needs. And you'll learn to do the strength that it needs by hands-on. And the best way to get good as this is doing hands-on and grappling and try to do it to as many people as you can. The only advantage that I have over you, I have a lot of people in my organization that know as much, some of them maybe even know more than I know. But my question is, how many different places can you knock people out? Or how many people can you knock out? Because they don't get the hands-on I get. That's my advantage. That's why I went out on the warpath doing seminars all over the world so I could get my hands on different sized people. First time I met this guy, he's great big. I knocked him out 3 or 4 times just for practice, didn't I?
Yes.
And I'm not going to do it now because I've done him so many times, but I've done that to him. And he's what? How much do you weigh?
240.
240. 6 foot what?
6'2".
6'2". I didn't know him. He walked in the first seminar. In fact, it was in Pottsville. I think you were there. And I went right over and tapped him right out because of his size and strength. And by the way, don't go tell people that. Because your student at 6'7" was trembling in my class. That great big guy in your school. He was, everything I do, he was ready to fall. Everybody must have told him he's going to get you because you're big. I said, everybody line up, and he was actually in the back of the class like this. I didn't know who he was till we paired off. Then he like straightened up little by little, but he was in the back trying to walk like this. They had him scared. If I'd go like that, he'd almost fall down. So don't tell people I'm going to pick on them because they're big, but yes, I do pick on them because they're big. It works. This works better if your opponent is larger than you. I can knock this guy out, he's shorter than me. I can knock that guy out, he's shorter than me. But it works better if they're larger than me. It's a little more difficult when they're shorter than you. This is an art that works from little to big, and that's when you need the art. That's when I need an art, because he's 6 foot something, 240 pounds. I need an art to fight him. I don't need an art to fight a little person. So it works better if they're a little up. In fact, out in California, you were up by Los Angeles somehow. Were you paying attention around when I had the one little person move over with the other little person? We had a person there who was about 5'2", another one about 5'4", and there was a guy about 5'10" or 11 trying to do these moves on this 5'2" person, and it wasn't effective. And they said, I can't find the points. And I had another one with a big person over a little person. So I said, wait a second. In fact, I think I stopped everybody, didn't I? And I got the one little person to do it the other little person, and the other little person then was in pain. Understand the theory behind that? So I stopped the class. A guy your size was trying to hurt a guy about 5'2". And he couldn't do it with the pressure points. Then rely on your strength and and just kick him in the face. I have some little people in my school. What do we say, Kim? I'll hit you in so many pressure points, you'll go down anyway. Because my fist is as big as half your little face. Okay. 80%. We try to get it to 100%. The best way to get it to 100% is adding more pressure points. 4, 5, 4 and 5 can kill. But in a life or death situation, I might go to 4 or 5. If we're talking life or death and somebody's going to kill me, I'm not worried about counting to 3. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
That's why I keep in my mind what the next move is for. What's that for? What's this for? What's that for? What's the next move? And if we need the double jump kick, he might even get that. Or he might get the jogging. Because I jog. And I get out of there quick if you're outnumbered. Okay, anybody else have a question?
When you have full moon, people,
Oh, good.
pressure
That's
points
good
are more
question.
activated. But does the sides of the body change, the yin and yang of the sides during the daylight hours and nighttime hours also?
A touch, but not that it would affect the fighting. But the full moon, you people all know about the moon, sun and the moon? And the size of the moon? The size of the moon actually matters. I don't go look at the moon. In fact, I don't even know what it's doing right now because I don't let the moon affect my seminar. But the larger the moon, usually the easier and deeper the knockout. The smaller the moon, it's usually harder to do the knockout. I do not let that affect my seminars because my notes also say that in a no moon, it's very difficult or almost impossible to do a knockout. And I almost killed somebody because of that. I mean, I unloaded on this guy and almost hurt him bad because it was no moon that I adjusted for it. So now I have learned not to adjust. If he doesn't go, if I have a seminar and I tap a guy and he just goes like this, that's enough in a fight situation. For me, I've satisfied me right then and there, because then I can do the next routine. But when I was in Australia and New Zealand, you don't know this, but Ian does. And my wife does. I had a seminar tour through Australia with a series of seminars, and then I went to New Zealand, which I was at yours, and we did 8 seminars. We had like 14 seminars set up, and we looked at the calendar, and we went from a little sliver of a moon. The moon constantly got bigger for my seminar tour. And I was doing my seminars like every other day. And through that, we were going to work right up to full moon. Ask Ian. Ian Waite is one of our DKIs in New Zealand. And he's a witness to that. I said to him that I am going to do the exact same knockout at each seminar. No one in the seminars knew. I said I'm going to do the same knockout and try to just keep the same power. And we're going to see what happens. And we did the knockout at the first seminar. I tapped the guy and he just went like this. Second seminar, the guy almost went down. Every one, he kept going deeper and deeper. On the full moon night, I couldn't wait to get to the seminar. Because he was going to sleep. He was going out and to sleep. And a lot of times we will have a seminar. And we'll leave it, and my wife or one of my students will say to me, they'll look at the moon and they'll say, look at the moon after the seminar. I don't look at it before. I don't really care, because I don't allow it to affect my seminar. You can do it, and you can fight by the moon if you wanted to, but you don't have to. I hit the guy. If he gets dizzy, that's enough. On a full moon or a nice piece of a moon, that's when he goes out deep. When it's a little moon, you sometimes just get the dizzy. Big moon, that's when he goes to sleep. That one year we had somebody snoring over there. That was almost a full moon. Full moon right out. So that's what happens. Anybody else have a question?
I can understand striking someone in a parasympathetic nerve because you're basically disrupting electrical conduction in the heart. You're going to slow down the heart rate. You mentioned before that striking in a sympathetic nerve can be helpful too because it sets things off. But if you're giving him a rush, if his heart rate is increasing, aren't you making him a more difficult opponent by doing that?
No. No, because it increases the blood pressure. When you tap any of the pressure points, you can drop his blood pressure drastically, and his blood pressure increases and then drops drastically. That's when he faints. That's in medical books. And he'll faint. You see? Kim, just come up here a minute. because you're good to show this on.
Thanks.
Just gear that in here. I just want to beat on my wife. Oh, notice she takes her watch off the other hand, you see? This is making people paranoid. No, I just want to show you, this is a demonstration. We're not going to, because you'll see me do arm knockouts. I'm going to squeeze the points here. I want you to pay attention to the legs. That's the part. When I catch the radial nerve with the squeeze here, and I hit it 2 other places. We were on the plane going to Australia, and I was explaining this to a heart surgeon. Anytime you take a nerve and connect at 3 points, I want you to pay attention to the legs, though. You see the legs kick out? You see that? That's the same kick out you see when I do the arm knockout. I just did it with the fingers as a smack. Had I did it the way you've seen me do it on Bill Birch or whoever at the seminars, then that's what causes the pass out. I just wanted to show the immediate response of knees. The immediate response of knees. Okay. Anytime you get the same nerve and can do that, that happens. Whether it be to the leg, the arm, anywhere you can get to the same nerve, that will happen. Now, when I go internal, some of you have seen me do the in-between the ribs job for the knockout. In fact, I'm trying to convince somebody to let me do that to him today. Right, Driscoll? Driscoll says he's quitting, he has to go home early. When I do the in-between the ribs, or any internal, it was explained to me this way. I don't know. I just have talked to some people about it, and I was told any of the internal nerves are just super sensitive. The way you saw me do an external nerve is a response. Any nerve that's internal has never been touched. It's never been touched. If you have had a toothache, you didn't even know there were nerves there, but all of a sudden the throbbing and the pain, the nerve, you feel it, you feel the jaw, right? Yes. And the throbbing and the pain. And then if it's going to respond to cold or hot, do you ever have a toothache and drink cold water and want to go through the ceiling? Or hot water. It can be either hot or cold. That's your receptors turning that off. That nerve is throbbing. Well, that's what happens internally. And I was actually told by a Chinese man that if you could peel back the skin and touch any internal nerve with a rub, that the person would pass out. Because those nerves have never had hands on them. You understand? They don't experience that in hospitals because the man has already passed out when they're in there. So a lot of the thrusting type, for instance, I do one that's very dangerous. I did it down in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't do the dangerous ones often. But down in Atlanta, Georgia, I went into the neck for the nerve knockouts. And I thrust in through, stand up. I thrust in through this known as, and I'm not going to do it to him, I just want you to know, this is a hollow pocket of the neck. You can get right in there and right in there to major nerves. That is where your thrust is to in Kata. I demonstrated that when you are thrusting and you are coming off that arm, you thrust into that neck. That is not to the solar plexus of the midsection. Nerves are so tender in there that if you go in there and do that, the person passes out. Those are nerves that have just never been touched. They've never been rubbed. And it just drives them crazy. I'm sure you've cut a nail too close and the nerve bothered you. Well, that's external. You ought to see what happens to a nerve that's internal. And then when I do a lot of the thrusting moves, or some of the ones that I've read about in this and the books, where they thrust internal, the nerve is so sensitive that just touch causes the passing out. The one I have on my videotapes where I thrust in the ribs, under each rib, here's your ribs, under each rib is what? A nerve. Intercostal nerve running under each rib. Under each one. That's why the moves in the katas that go like this, go like that. They don't go like this. Because the nerves are under the ribs. You can't rub up this way. but you can rub up that way. Whoop, another apple. There goes the whole cart. But when you thrust in, those fingers, how do I get out of this without giving this away? Those fingers will touch or rub a nerve, and they only have to rub it quick. That's why Sanshin Kata that everybody does goes like this. And they think they're and doing all this. They tighten up a little bit to thrust in. And then the rubbing only has to be a little rub. It only has to be that. And really, there's other places that you can do that. I haven't worked them out yet, but there's other places. And you can get to any nerve internal, which is very difficult to do because that's why they're inside. But when you get in there and just rub them, they pass out. The person passes out. And sometimes doctors, especially if they're neurosurgeons, I thought we were going to have a neurosurgeon here today. We were trying to get a neurosurgeon here, and he got called into emergency at the last minute. I had one of the best neurosurgeons in the whole Pittsburgh area, was supposed to be here today, and I really wanted him here. I brought my complete medical study and all along with me to show this man, because I wanted to go over some stuff with him that you wouldn't understand. Or just too lengthy or something you don't have to. But I wanted to discuss it with him because I wanted him to back up the book we're working on. And he got called into an emergency and we couldn't get it. So that's what happened with that. So he wasn't here.
It's my understanding that also underneath the ribs where the nerves run, the blood supply goes under there too. Are you affecting the blood supply?
You can if you've set him up first, which I try not to do because that could injure him. Yeah, if you set him up first, then again, anytime you get him at full stretch, you activate the baroreceptors in the arteries. Baroreceptors are little feelers or nerve endings in arteries that control blood pressure. They monitor the blood pressure in the arteries. The minute you get somebody hit or at a full stretch, you activate baroreceptors, which make them do this. They're tingling, and then you strike them, and you can hurt the person. So I watch doing that. I don't set up. A lot of times you'll see me knock people out, and I just don't set them up because the setup then could kill them. Especially with the ribs or the kidney or the back ones I'm now into. I do not hit the person in the front and then hit him in the back to see what happens because you could injure somebody bad. The whole thing that I do is try to take special precaution never to injure anybody. I've been doing my seminars. I have knocked out thousands of people. I guess almost 3/4 you had your hands raised on how many have I knocked out. And if I said how many have I buzzed or dizzy, you probably all get your hands up because you've been here before. Well, I have not injured anybody in all the thousands of seminars, the thousands of knockouts. I've not injured a soul because I do it very carefully. I make sure that I know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and whether I can reverse it. I don't just pull it off to see what had happened. I had a guy one time, boy, put it this way, I haven't dealt with the guy since. And I don't even want to say who he is in Amarillo, Texas, but he really got me mad. I flew off the handle. He saw me do that rib thrust on my videotapes. If you haven't seen my videotapes, I thrust in the ribs and he saw me do that, and he called me up. And you could tell by the voice, when he was talking, I thought, asshole. He gets my first 4 videotapes for the first time, goes to his dojo and gets one of his white belts to stand up like this, and he thrusts him in the ribs. And he calls me up and says it didn't knock the guy out. I said, what didn't? That finger thrust. I said, that was on there as part of a TV show, and to show that this stuff is more deadly than we're teaching you. I said, what did you do? He told me I stood this white belt up and finger thrusted him. I said, and what happened? I was afraid to hear. What happened? He said, well, the guy fell down on all 4s and was spitting up. I said, isn't that enough? Didn't I, Kim? My wife was there when that happened. I said, isn't that enough to make that an effective technique? The guy didn't pass out. But he fell off on his elbows and his knees, choking and spitting and throwing up, or almost throwing up. Now, I didn't get to ask him because I was totally PO'd. But I didn't get to, I wanted to ask, after I was mad, I blew up, I hung up on the guy. I really should have asked him what the time of the day was. Did the guy eat, not eat? Because if the guy ate, that would cause vomiting. All the nerves in there are going to control the stomach or be attached to the stomach somehow, and they're going to cause the throwing up. So he probably did that, poor guy, after he just come into the dojo and he had just had supper, stood the guy there and goes, hi-yah, just to see what will happen to the guy. No lessons, no nothing, and he doesn't worry about those 6 points that we're teaching on that first day. He goes right to that. So needless to say, that man has never got another lesson from me at all. And he proceeded to go to somebody else's camp on pressure points. And they threw him out also. So he proved himself to be just what I thought he was over the phone. And now no one teaches this guy. But that's the kind of thing that happens. That's what I'm worried about in this country. People that would mistreat it or mishandle it or go use it for crime. You understand? Crime or drugs. That'd be a problem. Anybody else have a question?
On the spear finger, on all of the spear fingers, when you do pressing block spear finger, they're all to the body. Okay, why? Is you still aiming with the body?
I thought I explained that.
No, you're right. You said to the neck.
Yes.
But why in all of the trucatas, everybody points to the body?
Because your opponent will be there. He'll be down there. Here, stand up. But this hand's always underneath, right?
Right.
Okay? If he's pushing me and I catch his hand and I come right from here, look where he's at. It looks like it's the body, but I have him at a full stretch and we're going right in for the neck. In other words, it's at this level in the kata, but that doesn't mean that it's at that level. It means that's where your opponent will be from this technique. I can now do the thrust. From the fist technique, and I go to here, I can now do the thrust. That feeds off of this. It feeds off the hand push. It feeds off. Just because it's at this level doesn't mean it's at that level. Your opponent will be at that level. I would never. Was there anybody here that would do that finger thrust to anybody else's stomach? I'll get you up to do it. You'll probably break your fingers, right? Yeah, you're not going to run your fingers at him. And especially you don't know if your opponent, this guy might be the biggest sit-up artist in the world. I don't know that with a gi on. He love it. I want those washboard stomachs. And then I go, boom. No way you can stop the neck. You understand? No way. That's soft. I'm going to sink in and hit nerve. And then if I activate arm. So you're not doing it. It's that high in the kata, but if somebody taught you the real meaning behind the move, that just means he's at that level for it to be done. Anybody else have a question?
When you're working pressure points on the arm and then you go up to strike the neck, what's the difference between the effect when you strike the same side of the neck you're working on the arm versus striking the other side of the neck?
You won't
get the effect when you go to
come
the
up
other
here.
side?
Oh, he goes. If I knock this arm down and strike you here, I have that nerve at a stretch. The nerve at a stretch sets up the neck.
Right.
Plus, I am striking the same nerve. I'm not over here.
Yes, sir.
I'm not over here. The only way I'm going to attack you over there on that side is if I lift the arm up. Right? We had a guy at one of my seminars down in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. Some guy wanted to claim he's a high-ranking Okinawan stylist. Were you there for that? When the guy was trying to knock this guy out? He said, I can do anything Dillman does. So I said, fine. You get this guy and knock him out. And he got this guy, and he has taken his arm, and he's beating on this guy's neck. I mean, he's hitting his neck hard. Boom, 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 boom. And the guy ain't going out. I said, then you ain't duplicating what Dillman does. You understand? Because you just tap it. When you knock the arm down, and you tap him up there, he's going to go out on that side, not on that side. If I raise the arm up, he'll go out on that side. I had a muscle specialist in our school tell me that when I try to raise his arm and he resists, which your opponent will resist, you don't have to raise his arm up. 110 muscles get involved with uncovering the nerve on that side to strike it. I don't know if that's it or not, but I had a muscle specialist in our school tell me that, and that's why techniques are like that in kata. That's why the hand raises up. That's why you raise the hand. Versus on this side of the body, knock the hand down. Okay? And you thought I was going to knock you out, didn't you?
Thank you, sir.
I've knocked you out before. We don't have to keep doing that to prove it. This class, you don't have to knock anybody out. They all believe it. What other questions?
My question is, what causes, after you hit certain pressure points, sick-like feelings, nausea, head rushes? I mean, what is it?
You're describing what you went through.
Yeah, exactly. What triggers that off? I know you're hitting points.
No, what caused it with you is you lift weights, and the size of the muscle makes them more vulnerable. In other words, you stretch the nerve. A good example is a young lady that we had out in Indiana. And she was a female bodybuilder and weightlifter. And she couldn't even get pressure points done on her. She would go and vomit. We're talking the basic stuff. We're talking the basic stuff. We'd be just wrapping the arm or doing the ones that are safe, supposedly, to do. And she would go out and be vomiting. She passed out several times. She would go out and be sick in the hall, almost want to go to the hospital. And she had a dynamic build, but it was all muscle. That lady is still training, but she stopped lifting weights and she's back down and she's studying the martial arts. It's changed her training. When you take an arm, you take this guy's arm, his arm is this big. And there's a nerve that goes through here like a shoestring. And we send him out to Prendergast School of Weightlifting, and he pumps iron, and this same man comes back with an arm your size. His nerve is at a full stretch. So it's affecting, on 2 points on you, it's almost affecting you as 3, because you have a nerve that's a full stretch. You have a nerve that's just being pulled. When I want to do a technique on a littler arm person, you've heard me say I use torque. I torque. If I do this to him, he feels it. But if I torque or pull that nerve and then do this, he feels it more. If I catch this underneath the ulnar nerve and I catch it like this, if I do this, he feels it. But if I torque it and do this, it hurts him more. Well, what happens is when you lift weights, you created the torque for me. You've created the torque. Nothing you can do about that, but the bigger you build this, the more torque. The thing I do for ribs, I have to be very careful, because on a weightlifter, the bigger he builds the chest, the less meat there is on the ribs. The more he pumps and builds this chest, he stretches that up, and all these nerves that are in a weightlifter's ribs are very vulnerable. I was told, I don't know this for a matter of fact, but when I hit the triple warmer in the back, there's nerves crisscross there. When I hit the triple warmer in the back, that I was told with a weightlifter, if you really hit him hard there, it could cause a heart attack. I don't know that for sure. I've never done it to anybody, but that's what I was told, that you have to be very careful on a weightlifter. On this point that we hit and do this, he goes, but on a weightlifter, it's liable to affect the heart.
That was the one I had in mind was one you did to the area, face area, and after it was done, I mean, the next day I was dead. I mean, I was.
No, don't say that, don't use that word. He was not feeling that.
Wasn't feeling. Incapacitated.
They will go out of here and say, he did kill one, I heard it. One was dead.
And that's what made me start thinking. I said, if it was, you know, from the neck up, it was in this region here, what would
I had a
cause-
couple, I don't want to scare anybody, but I had a couple that I did lower abdominal and back that there has been loss of some sex life.
No, so far that's okay.
I used the delayed one on you, it'll be,
After September 14th. After September 14th.
That's right, after September 14th. So, but anyways, we've had some people lose some energy flow and drain. I did a back knockout out in Indiana. Some of you were there to see it. I knocked the guy out on the back. Okay, I backed off on how hard I hit. It was the first time. I was a little over anxious, I guess, to make sure he'd pass out in front of people. And you know, I gear up for some of these things, and I geared up and hit that guy on the back a little too hard. And some of you were happy though, but the man had some problems for almost 30 days. The man had problems for almost 30 days. Minor problems, but there was some problems. And that's why you got to watch when you stay in this region. You're messing with the abdominal. I do not mess with even the heart line. You know my seminars. I do everything up in the lungs. If you don't pass out in the lungs, forget it. I'm not going to hit your heart line to see. I squeezed that guy on the heart pressure point, but I didn't kick him on a follow-up one or hit him on a heart one. Some of you are at some seminars where I passed around pictures. I have pictures of me being knocked out on my heart one. Some of the best pictures you'll see. I mean, I'm out in midair, my feet are up off the ground this way, my feet pulled up. I am totally out, and my heart line's being touched. But Ralph Bushbacher, who is a doctor, said to me afterwards, he said, man, I'm telling you, you just had a physical. I said, why? He said, your heart's in good shape, because if it wasn't, you would have been still on that floor. He took me out on 3 heart pressure points, and it was an experience, and I had it happen a couple times, because you could feel the electricity, and I wanted to learn how to do it, and I learned how to do it, but that one scared me enough that I didn't run around doing it to people, because I don't know when I do it, if you're going to have a heart attack tomorrow, whether I touched you or not, and I'm liable to set the damn thing off. So I do not do the heart. I watch when I do rib techniques. I'm very careful on rib techniques. You all know that that's where they monitor the heart. You have a lot of heart points here. And the nerves that are in this section of the body go straight to major organs. They go straight to the major organ. When we come off the arm, yes, you're going through the spine and the relay system to kick it to the organ, and there's a little pause, and you have a body saving device. That's a lot of what I use. A lot of what I use is trickery to your system. Trickery. The Golgi's tendon tricks the mind into thinking that the arm is already broken, right? And it relaxes the muscle. It actually lets the mind believe that the arm is already broken with that message, so then you could break the arm, because this releases it. So a lot of what we do is trick your system. Some of the knockouts that I use, we trick your head into thinking your heart has stopped, so the head closes down. Some of those, though, usually the guy wakes up the minute he hits the floor because your system realizes that the heart didn't stop. So there's many different knockouts. There's ones to trick the head. There's also ones to trick the heart. There's also ones that involve just totally making them pass out by multiple striking on nerves. And the multiple striking on nerves is what causes them to blank out, and when you get an internal nerve and can touch it, they blank out. When you can later on look at this after we're done the class, and I want you to look at the man because you'll see the muscle and you'll see the pressure points. Pay attention on the back. In fact, maybe you can see it. Do you see these the Y's in the nerves? See how the nerve does this? Can everyone see that? If you can't, come up and see it afterwards. But you'll see a Y here. Do you see this meridian line? it really seems funny that this outer meridian line is right where these outer lines are. Isn't that quite a coincidence? See what I mean? Now look at this row of nerves. The Y's are where this meridian line is. This meridian line nerves, they're out here, they're in here. If you look at this chart, what I told them last night, as we were looking at it, that dot is actually below that nerve. That dot is below that nerve. That dot is below that nerve. Through my hands-on application, I feel, and I know deep in my heart, that that dot is at that Y. I don't know whether they did that to throw us off. You got to remember, the Orientals didn't teach us everything to know about the katas, and I really feel, I don't care who knows acupuncture, but I really feel the Chinese didn't give us all that they know about acupuncture. You understand what I mean? They gave us some. They dangled. They gave us the apples. They have the cart. They have the cart. There's a lot probably going over in China in their cart that we don't know about. Even though we have people that swear that they're real good Americans at acupuncture. I have one right up in my city. I have one out in California. He comes to my seminars. You were out there in California. And I'm sure he swears he's the best. And I didn't even say that to him. So if anybody here does acupuncture and I offended you, that's the way it goes. That's my feeling. I'm allowed to have my own feeling. I just feel that they didn't give the whole secret. They give some, but not the whole thing. They got something back there that we don't know about.
I was talking to a Hindu cardiologist the other day, and he told me that a colleague of his was over in Beijing on cultural exchange, and he witnessed open heart surgery, and the person was totally anesthetized just with acupuncture.
Yep.
We pretty much understand how acupuncture works now.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is I still think there's some deeper inner secrets that we don't know. In other words, we understand how it works, and we have a lot of people in this country doing it, and a lot that have been trained in China. The one man that just moved to Reading, our city, was trained in China. He came back from China, studied in China, but I'm still sure that they have some secrets over there that they're not dumping out. I'm sure they're not dumping everything on us. That's my own feeling. I'm allowed my own feeling, and I say that right around the Chinese people. Sometimes they smile. So they go, I wonder if they know something. Anybody having questions?
Can you tell us some more about your notes?
What do you want to know?
Well, what made you want you to
Hohan Soken's notes, you mean? I have them with me. I brought them along. I thought I was going to show them to this neurologist. I brought everything. I even brought his notes. His notes are really designed at fatal level. Those of you that have seen them, these guys have seen them or been there when they were read aloud. They really read fatal, 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 fatal. In the knockout portion, I worked on leaving several of the other strikes out to make them knockout, knockout, knockout. I'm trying to develop an art, which we're getting better at. And like I say, it's a little scary now because we have something like 20 people around the country that have each developed their own knockouts. And some of them 2 and 3 knockouts. On their own, knockouts that I didn't teach them. I presently have about, I think it's 67 ways when I was writing it down to knock people out. And I got people out there that have 3 and 4, and there's like 20-some people now that have their own knockouts that I don't know, and they're telling me about them, and I'm making notes on them. I want to put them on a computer so don't forget them. I don't have to do them all. I don't have to do them. If I can knock you out here and they can knock you out there, it doesn't matter as long as we're close. If I can get to here, I can get to there, or vice versa. But they're coming up with knockouts using the system. Like I said, your own instructor. Ed Lake, I never thought I'd be studying Ed Lake on tape. Backing it up, going, what? Let me see that again. He closed down a guy's body with body techniques. But augmented block. I ain't going to tell him how he did it, Ed, but that's your thing. But just the augmented block. Well, till we came along, the augmented block didn't mean anything. Ed Lake just took a guy and went, augmented block, and the guy passed out. So maybe, yeah, scared him to death by yelling augmented block. Okay, we tried to make this seminar, you didn't do any hands-on, but we tried to make this more educational so you get questions answered. In the future, I plan to have a session. I told Mr. Chan, I have all my books and my notes. In the future, I'm going to tell people what books to get. And one day we're going to have a session at my school. It's not going to be next week, so don't call me and ask me about it. But I am picking out people. I am picking out people that have good attitudes, want to learn, and we're going to sit down and we're going to sit like a classroom. There won't be anybody touching anybody, and we're going to sit down with some medical books open. And I'm going to say, turn to page whatever. I did that with him this weekend before we came, and it was interesting. And we showed how, why, etc. in the medical books. And one day I plan to have a session like that, and everybody will come with the books, and we'll probably have chairs rather than on the floor, and we'll have a blackboard, and we'll go to the blackboard and mark, and you'll highlight in your book what I have highlighted in my book, and then we'll discuss each page. And I plan a couple sessions like that in the future with some higher people that have been around, and then you'll find out who, how, and why, and be able to pass it on. A lot of times, people can explain in depth, but they can't do it. I have some guys in my organization do a lot of reading, and my question is, but can you knock people out? Can you do it out in the street? If you can't, all the explanation don't mean anything. So actually get the hands on and be able to do it and practice it. That's where it comes in. Okay, everybody rise. And the man with the prettiest karate school in the United States went crazy remodeling it for this weekend. He was even in here working himself. I said, no, Jim, not that. Jim, clap. Give him a round. Oh, yeah, well, Mr. Chan, some of you met in my session, and I said, he came all the way from New Zealand. And I want to tell you, he came over here for a couple other things, but he worked it so he could be at this camp. He heard about this camp in New Zealand, they've heard about this camp in Australia, and you will be surprised where people might be traveling from next year to this camp. But Mr. Chan come over here from New Zealand just to see what was happening with these three instructors. With a lot of research was Dave Ellis. Where's Dave?
Come on, Dave.
Right here.
He's right in the
Oh,
back.
down that end. Okay. Dr. Ellis is from Washington, D.C. For those of you that were in the advanced session, he tried to explain with charts and a mannequin and the whole bit exactly how and why everything works, how a nerve works and functions. And just to make it short and sweet, the external nerves, when touched or hit, various things happens to the body. The internal nerves, when touched or rubbed, things happen to the body. Internal nerves have never really been touched or rubbed. You also have positive and negative electricity in your body, and you can shut it off, the same as you can a car with the two terminals. You take the positive corner, put it against the far end positive corner. That's positive to fire the electricity. Then you just touch the negative and short out behind the head. Come on, Bill. Come on, Bill. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Bill's from Illinois. Let's give him a hand.
so fast. Okay, the minute we're finished, you see Mrs. Dillman do some restoration. Okay? We'll go over to Mike Selecki. Give him a round of applause. Nobody wants to come out now. I'll calm down a little bit.
And Lake came all the way from Florida.
I'm working on one on the back. We have a move in the kata that goes like this. You pay attention from Idaho. Get up here and see this. You do this and move in the kata, and I made fun of it today that, you know, your opponent's bend your arm up behind your back. You're really mapping out on your back where you attack your opponent. If I activate the wrist pressure points, if I activate the triple warmer, which is behind the arm, the triple warmer sets up the kidney. If I'm 2 inches above the kidney, 4 inches in from the spine, I actually come off the triple warmer, and I am doing that to my opponent. I'm not doing this behind my back. I'm showing on my back where it will activate my opponent by coming off the triple warmer. Now, I sometimes sneak in a second hit, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want it that deep or hurt. But I usually will hit the triple warmer, and I will come in with this type of technique, which is also in the kata. Cross his legs. That was light.
Give Ed Lake a hand from Florida. Ed's featured in several of Mr. Dillman's videos.
Where's Tinnen? Bring me Tinnen. Where's Larry? I only want to show these. Come up here, Larry. I want to show these to. I want to show these to Professor J and Remy Presas because they've never seen some of these. They're on my greatest hits album.
See, you heard that? Jim said that.
I need a catch. I need somebody to catch. I need somebody to catch on this one. Yes, two. Yeah, you keep hitting the floor. You fold legs. You stay back. This move's for the Ishin rule. How many Ishin rules? Okay, this is the move out of your kata. This is the move out of your kata. This goes in the ribs and catches the nerve. That's what we call internal, and we rub or touch it. We explained it over in the advanced session, but now we're going to try to demonstrate it. Keep your feet down. It's done in the ribs. So unless you move around this way, I don't know if you're going to see it. Now look in the mirror. Get back there. Get back in there.
I'll be right here, no?
You're all right. I'm protecting you.
Okay.
Wait. Huh? Is that? It's okay now. It's okay now.
Give Larry Tennant from Georgia School in Pennsylvania.
You're not to try that at home. He'll be okay. That closes down the abdominal system. So that one can make you feel like you've been electrocuted is what can happen. It closes down all the lower abdominal region. It sometimes can cramp the legs, almost paralyze the legs. And it's done with touches.
It's called human flexible. Right, down and down. Right here. Arm body stands up. The dance number that I use, I don't know, I never danced with him before, so I don't know. Two hands. On the mat. Up, up. Oh. 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 Oh, don't kick me, huh? Oh. Judo has really helped me in my jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu helped my judo. You choke me. But see how I lock my hands over here? Yosh. Oh, up. Oh, trying to escape, huh? No sweat. Watch a little action and watch your body move. Just watch my little finger. Oh, trying to escape, huh? Here, one finger hold. There's no way to escape. Oh, trying to escape again, huh? Oh, thank you. There's always a hold along the way, no matter how you move. The most important thing is sensitivity. You gotta be really relaxed and grip firmly, not tight. You don't want your sinews to tighten up so you can feel it, guys. That's why I have no trouble. I'm gonna hit a guy right here one time, right here, and he just screamed so he could have a heart attack. And George told me that because it's the pressure point, you know, when you do the CPR, that's where he hit the guy. The guy was over 300 pounds. And another guy, I was in New York, and I was holding a seminar, and he jumped on the mat. I know he was a karate instructor for 20 years. He came from Japan. And he says, I got a strong wrist, you know, I was showing this technique. He said, you put it on me, he said. As soon as I heard that it was a challenge because he didn't pay, he began with this, boom. And he was good to me after that. I went to visit him, he gave me a chair, he brought me food. It was really nice of him. But he came to show me up. That's why I did it. But normally I don't do it to people. Unnecessary. You can really hurt a person really badly if you want to. You don't need strength to hurt a person. But you got to be very careful because of the legal repercussions today. But some things I do, I like to choke a lot and Man, I do one technique, okay? I get blow right here. Please. Oh, shit. Oh. These, so they call it Jigoro Kano right here. If you hold this way, you can fight. But watch, when I hold the thumb straight up, bend. Oh, good, thank you. My hands. You tie them up in knots. That's what I had to think. Whoa! And they're planning on having a seminar in Hawaii for me. I don't know how many people will go. I mean, if you're interested, you can always send me a card or maybe I'll put a pad over there and you can sign it. You can put a pad over there.
How many like to do this in Hawaii?
Maybe July.
I'll tell you what. He backed out one year. I tried to get him to go with it because we had students signed up, and he backed out. But he arranges lower price there at a discount. He gets hotels at a real lower rate than you can get. They train in the afternoon and party at night and go tour the island. So I mean, it really works out to be not only a cheap vacation, but an educational one.
For his,
and you can write it off.
We're going to have it for his 75th birthday celebration next year.
So I'll be June, I'll be 15, I'll be 74. So next year. Remy will come along too. He's right there, you will come along.
I'll be there, Wally.
Oh.
Let's give a hand to Scott Howard from my school who helped.
I've been in the martial arts for 50 years. I never advanced so fast until I met George Dillman and Remy Presas. When we team up together, we start to share knowledge. And it was tremendous, I tell you. The things I pick up, I can find the pressure button, I don't know the names, I don't know what's happening. He helps me, I help him, I help Remy, Remy helps me. So the sharing is so important today. Back in the traditional days, nobody shares. They're scared that you learn something from me. That's a lot of bull. You can advance more if you share with each other. And that's why we get so good, because we help each other.
I couldn't do the knockouts till I learned his small circle theory.
Yeah. And Dr. Ellis is
True
really
story.
a key person too. He's been helping us. So I remember Remy had a follow-up with a guy, and the guy told me, you know, Remy's stealing your techniques, Wally. I said, yeah, I'm stealing his. We call it sharing.
Oh.
The last guy, I did the ribs there. It wasn't as much danger as it looked like. He was asleep. That's a fast induced sleep. And then what happened was I put him to sleep, and then you revive him. It's just like if you went to sleep and somebody ran in and shook you. If you were watching, he's like cranky on the floor. Well, how would you be if you just went to sleep? Now, you got to remember, though, I induced the sleep very rapidly, and then you are brought out of it rapidly. So that can cause a hangover or a severe headache, which I'm sure he has. I didn't even ask him, but I'm sure he has that. It's because of how rapid the sleep is induced and then how rapid you're brought out. That technique is dangerous if you try it, but it's not that dangerous when I do it. It's not like I'm going to kill him, but it is. He's put to sleep like that, and then all of a sudden somebody's going like this, and the body can't handle the sleep, wake up. And then you get cranky. We've had tears. I don't know if he's a tear in there. We've had people tear. We've had sinuses drain. So that one I do not do often. I do not do that often because it's a dangerous technique that way. And you put somebody out, and then all of a sudden you're waking them right back up again. You have to bring them back. You have to bring them back. In those revival techniques, I just want to emphasize that 12 seconds you have to bring him back. 12 seconds, especially on that technique. You should try to get him back within 9 seconds. That's a decent amount of time. After 12 seconds, bringing him back gets more difficult. That's the only reason I rush to get him back and get him in a position so I can bring him back, because after 12 seconds, bringing the person back becomes more difficult. Becomes more difficult. Everybody have a good time?
Yes.
Yes. Everybody rise. Okay.
Let me see something about George.
Down, please.
When George hit a guy, as soon as he hit the guy, we got him on tape. The guy was snoring while he was on his way down. Remember last year, Dillman? You hit the guy?
Yes.
He snored on the way down?
Yes. Yes, and did you tell him you had a guy in a leg bar?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. I had a guy in a leg bar, and I was stepping on him this way. George said, kick him. I put my leg away, kicked the guy passed out.
But then what he didn't tell you was he dropped the foot real fast. And I said, if the guy dies, you killed him.
Okay, Remy?
Thank you.
What's at the mirror now?
I have a special presentation on behalf of Judy and I and our school. First is basically appreciation for doing the first 3 camps, the State of the Arts camps. I'd like to present this. It's a picture that was taken last year of Judy, myself, and the 3 of us up here. To Wally J first.
Oh, terrific.
Thank you. Always try. Yeah, and also to Remy Presas. Thank you. And George Dillman. I'd just like to say on behalf of Judy and I that we were very fortunate to have everybody here. We had, I think, all told, we're about 15, 18 states represented, and we had New Zealand represented. And I think we all had a good time. And on behalf of us, I just want to thank you all very, very deeply, because this was the biggest camp yet. And next year, 92, there's a good possibility on the first weekend of April. We have to watch how Easter falls. And we hope that you all were educated and entertained today, learned a lot. And I want to thank you again deeply, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.